Okay, let's go over the implications of replication for application development. Now, on one hand, the whole idea of using replica sets is that they're very transparent to the developer, and hence you don't really have to understand that they're there. It's supposed to just create greater availability and fault tolerance and not get in your way. But there's a few things you need to remember. The first one is that, of course, there are these seed lists, and so you need to remember that when you're using the drivers, which are primarily responsible for connecting you to a new node during failover after a new primary is elected, the drivers need to know about at least one member of the replica set. So you need to understand that seed lists exist. The second is that now that we're in this distributed environment, you need to understand this idea of write concern, and in particular, the idea of waiting for some number of nodes to acknowledge your writes through the W parameter, the J parameter, which lets you wait or not wait for the primary node to commit that write to disk, and also the W timeout parameter, which is how long you're going to wait to see your write replicated to other members of the replica set. So you have to keep that in mind because that is going to have an implication on the way you write the applications, assuming that these defaults haven't just been put into the replica set for you. All right. The next is that now that there's multiple nodes for you to potentially read from, you have to decide whether or not you want to read from your primary, which is the default, most obvious and preferred thing to do, or whether you want to take your reads from your secondaries. And if you're going to take your read from your secondary, the application has to be ready to use data that's potentially stale with respect to what was written. And the final idea is that even though that replication exists, and that you have these nodes in place to deal with errors and defaults and elect a new primary if needed, still errors can always happen. And these errors can happen because of transient situations like failover occurring, or they can happen because there are network errors that occur, or maybe there's actually errors in terms of violating the unique key constraints or other syntactic things. And so generally speaking, to create a robust application, you need to be checking for exceptions when you read and write database to make sure that if anything comes up, that you know it, so that you can make sure that you understand at the application level what data has been committed and what data is durable in your application.